There is currently no real female lead in terms of adventure, wildlife and science. That combination you see with wonderful naturalists and presenters, legends, all men on screen. It's time to like change the game with that. All this amazing information, this wealth of knowledge that we just can't access, the general public don't feel connected to. And that's where this magical combination of like science meets storytelling and wildlife film is like the sweet spot for me. So the plan was to see orca, gannets, seals, minke whales and blue sharks. Let's just do a coastal dive. And then this huge barrel jellyfish came out of the murk. And it's just, it like absolutely viral. It was bonkers. And there's boxes everywhere, and they're that big, right? So you wouldn't be able to see them. But if you get stung, you literally go into like 11 hours of what's being described as impending doom. Wow, this is what it means to have an interaction with a wild animal, a wild pack of wolves that aren't used to humans.
What, like looking you in the eyes? You're looking the wolf in the eyes?
From me to you, kind of smelling the air and being like, what are you? I filmed with species that are on the brink or critically endangered, and there's a last population and scientists are doing what they can to protect it. So we're seeing mass deforestation. Right now, I know there's wildfires ripping through that whole place we were filming with the jaguars. So you remember that jaguar, Farah? Her whole habitat gone, dead. It's like,
wow.
It's scary. It's scary because we're at these tipping points. Once we pass those, it's going to be really hard to come back. If we all did our bit, we would make a shift, but we need to be focusing on the big corporations, the organizations that are carrying on and that have whole marketing teams dedicated to look like they're doing their bit, and then behind the scenes are just exploring a new part of the ocean for exploration of oil.
Welcome, Lizzie.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Nice to see you.
Nice to see you.
It's been a while.
It has been
You've
a while.
been, where have you been recently? You've been 6 months away somewhere filming?
Yeah, the past, around 6 months have been filming a new series called Deep Dive North America. So pretty much across all of North America, been to Norway. We've done loads of kind of shoots so far. So yeah, halfway through.
Oh, you got to go back?
Oh yeah, it
it's
finishes at
done.
the end of the year. Oh no. No. So it's like 6 blocks of filming over the year. It takes a year to put together actual filming time.
Shit.
And then there's post-production. So this series doesn't come out till March 25, maybe later. Can we say that? Timestamp?
Yeah. Yeah. But so you're like kind of fulfillment in it is so delayed, isn't it? As in seeing the finished product.
Yeah. I love how we're just jumping straight into this, by the way.
No, but like...
Yeah, it is. I mean, it is. So it's interesting.
Because most people do something, they train for it, they do it, and they get the medal. Like, it's within, say, 3 months.
Yeah, I guess so,
I feel like as humans, when you're waiting 2 and a bit years, that must be a bit...
For sure. Yeah, like some of the series that have gone out this year that we filmed basically 2 years ago, like I've changed quite a lot in that time. How I want to deliver has changed. Even some of the work of the conservation teams on the ground has changed. But the whole process is quite rewarding. And I think as I kind of get more experience in that field, I'm learning that every step of it, pre-production, during obviously is the best part because you're out in the field and you're filming and you're amongst it and you're face to face with a lot of the species. But every element of it, you're getting some kind of reward. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I mean, I guess it's like a business owner as well, right? You're thinking like 1-2 years ahead in terms of that ultimate reward. But
I was just thinking with like these, right? So sometimes if I back these up, I'm filming 8, 10, 12 weeks ahead.
There you go.
And by the time it comes out, I'm like, I can't believe I fucking said that. But I felt it 12 weeks ago. Do you know, like as in...
Yeah, I do,
What I'm saying is even in 8, 12 weeks, you're not the same.
You change, yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. 2 years ago, you might have described something a certain way. Or
totally.
Moved a certain way with your body.
Totally. And editorially, that's something I've had to let go of a little bit because I don't like the word control freak. It's just not a good term. But I think having ownership over something is something you should be proud of. And I've really lent into that as these programs have been made, because whereas when you're green and you're trying to make the best impression and like build yourself and your career, I guess you don't want to go in with both feet and be like, I want it to be this way. But deep down, you're like, oh, I'd like this to be a program that I can be really proud of and have ownership of. And maybe 2 years ago, that was not really the case as much as it is now. And I'm starting to kind of find that rhythm and get that kind of involvement. Not so much as an official exec on some of these programs, but I have good relationships with the people that I work with where I'm able to say, let's work on an idea together, or how about we chat to this person?
Are they quite open to that, or is it quite like, no, this is the script. You just go and do
depends.
your filming and we're going to edit it?
Yeah, it totally depends. So something for like the BBC, there are some styles, let's say, that they maybe have just always had, and so you kind of fit into their kind of model. But for these series, I'm working with an amazing production company down in Brighton, and they are fabulous in terms of they respect, I guess, or understand that my background is in science, and so I can bring a lot to the table when it comes to that content. And I don't do very well with like hard scripts. I can learn a script and I can deliver exactly what you want, but if I'm faced with a blue whale, I'm going. Like, I'm on a tangent.
It's
See you in
wild.
10 minutes.
That is wild.
You can't not. It's exciting, and I think that's part of it, to be honest, is being able to put your own stamp on it as well.
Yeah, I mean, it looks wicked from where I'm standing, but we'll just take it back before we go to...
I know, we've gone straight in.
Straight in. Just looking at kind of like your bio as such, just for people that might not be aware. So like wildlife biologist, filmmaker, presenter, adventurer, explorer. They're the main topics on there. We'll delve into them because there's a couple of bits on it that are quite cool. But before we go there, like, as I send you in a car, I try and understand how and why you might have ended up where you've ended up, right? If there's anything as a child that might have pushed you towards there. So kind of what was childhood like for you? Did you grow up around nature? Were you kind of into animals all the time? Or is it a complete different veer off of?
Yeah, it was definitely an outdoor influence. So none of my family or my parents are biologists or, wildlife massive enthusiasts, but always outdoors. My mum has always been very adventurous. And then my stepdad was a massive influence on me from a young age. So I was born in Germany and lived there for the first few years. I was like
a foreigner like me.
Full,
big up.
Yeah. Let's all get together. No, I was, first language, it was like very much my upbringing. And then my mum and dad split when I was very young, so a couple of years old. And then we moved back to Wales and I've lived there ever since. But it's one of those where I've got like close connections to Germany. I've got lots of family over there, but...
You speak fluent?
I used to, yeah. I just need to go and spend more time there. You know what it's like? You lose touch with it. It's kind of a wasted thing, really, but...
I've never heard a Welsh German.
It's such an aggressive mix.
Well, I wouldn't
like
mind
Welsh
hearing
is
that.
quite... It's like the weirdest mix, Welsh and German. But there were people who were kind of played a big role in my life when I would go back. My mum always said to me and my sister, I want you guys to have the opportunity to have a good relationship with your dad. So she would put us on a plane and we would go just ourselves every year to go and visit him. And we'd spend some time there and I'd stay with my auntie and uncle over there. And it was now you're older, you kind of get more perspective on what that was like, don't you? And you start to be like, oh yeah, that's why I'm like I am, or there's certain things that you think back on. And Germany was a big part of my life, but...
Where in Germany?
I was born in a place called Kitzingen, small place, Bavaria. Beautiful. Like proper German town, like cobbled streets.
Wow.
Sausages.
Sausages.
German life.
Yeah, I've only been to Munich. Went to the actual Oktoberfest.
Did you like it?
There. The real Oktoberfest.
Oh, the real one.
That's where we got some of our ideas. We nicked it from the original one.
No way. Did you enjoy it?
I did enjoy it, yeah. I did enjoy it.
Real sense
but
of...
there's a lot of Turks in Germany.
Is there?
It's like, I think it's the largest population of Turks outside of Turkey. I think there's 3 million of them.
Really?
I want to say. I don't know in what part, but so there was a lot of kebab shops and things in Munich that felt like I could be just here.
Yeah. I do... Every time I go back, I fall in love with it all over again. Germany is a beautiful place. There's lots of natural beauty, but the whole kind of what inspired me to get into the outdoors really started in my time in South Wales. So I've always lived in South Wales since I moved back. And as I said, my stepdad and mum were very outdoorsy, very adventurous. We didn't have lots of money. Like my mum kind of left Germany, started as a single mum with 2 young girls, hustling.
Fair play.
There was. We actually spoke about it recently, and she was talking about how like there was a time where literally it was hand to mouth. It was like pasta, and a jar of tomato sauce, and that'd be it. And we didn't really need much more. And she saved up for a caravan, and we used to spend our time on the coast in places like West Bay. And so the South Wales coast has had a big influence on me growing up. But we'd be more than happy just getting amongst it, dirty knees, out on the coast, just kind of like a humble upbringing from an early age.
Well, I think quite a healthy upbringing as well as a kid.
Yeah.
As a kid, like you don't, like you talked about the tomato with the, tomato soup or whatever it might have been, pasta. And I said to you earlier about us when we lived in London with not loads to eat as well. But as a child, you don't realise that until you're our age now. Looking back, everything seems fun.
Yeah.
If your mum turns up and goes, "Oh, we've got this one cookie tonight and we're going to share it," it's all like a game. Like, you don't realise we're all going hungry.
Yeah.
Because you're a kid.
It's so true, yeah. And it's, I would say, it's not like I have had a struggled upbringing. Like my mum's done an incredible job. She shaped me massively, and she's built herself up as a career as a teacher, and then went on to be a business owner and all of that. So over the years, I'm by no means sheltered, but kind of started from like humbled beginnings, and then she's worked her way up that way. And I owe a lot of my, I think, determination and grit to her. And actually all the women in my family, spicy.
Oh,
they're all quite
the old Welsh
unusual.
Peppers,
yeah. The Welsh spirit. They're all quite feisty and fiery in their own way. And
that way you get that kind of independence from, you reckon?
100%.
Because like you just fuck off for 6 months to a different part of the world.
Yeah, literally.
With no comms with anyone.
Yeah, and everyone's like, she's just doing a thing. Yeah, it's kind of the norm.
Awesome.
Yeah, and it's kind of even hearing stories of my grandma and her great grandma, and there was women in my family that kind of go way back that would like run off to the circus and just kind of be just very eccentric or live an eccentric life. And I'm very grateful to all the women in my family for influencing, I guess, me and my sister and all my family that way. Yeah.
I mean, so the outdoors element makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Wildlife, you always been into animals and pets and kind of...
Yeah, my mum wouldn't let me
meat?
have many. No, I'm vegetarian.
Veggie, so you're kind of like 1 foot in, 1 foot out. You're not a full vegan.
I'm not a vegan. I tried going vegan. I think that in itself is a really interesting thing.
I'm stereotyping here, by the way. Right? Wildlife person must be a vegan.
Must be a raging vegan. Thing is, and I will say this all day long, you can be a good meat eater, you can be a bad vegan.
As a human, yeah.
And it's one of those where I've met bad vegans. I've met vegans that pass out and they like come around. They're like, oh, it happens all the time. I'm like, you're not getting the nutrition that you need. And in a similar way, you can eat meat and it be from a supermarket and be, horrible for you. But the veggie choice came from, I guess, more of an environmental thing. I travel quite a lot with work. I have to think about I'm environmentally very conscious. So that's my way of doing my bit for the environment. I don't really eat that much dairy, but yeah, I'm not a good vegan. I travel so much. I would only eat soup and salad.
It's getting better if you're always in the same town, can go to the same shops. But I guess if you're traveling, sometimes it's hard, yeah. And it's slightly different. But I guess if you were, when I was younger and quite into kind of the bodybuilding thing, when you're trying to, stay within your macros, you also couldn't.
See, macros.
You'd have to count your own stuff.
What is a macro?
Macro is like your protein, your carbs, and your fat.
But why is that called a macro?
Macronutrient. It's short for.
This whole world that I don't know anything about, but I should really get to know.
Well, I don't know anything about your world, so let's
okay.
It's good.
We're all
it's
learning.
Good. So, talk to me then how you go from this kind of young girl that likes the outdoors, through the education system, but into then actually doing your presenting and getting into this world, because it feels like to the average Joe sat on a sofa at me watching it. How the hell do you get into that stuff?
Yeah.
How do you end up doing it like that?
Yeah. So kind of going back a step, I knew when I was super young, I had a bit of an obsession with elephants. I don't know what it was. They are obviously, it's like any young girl, I guess. It's a bit cliche, but my mum tells me that at 6, I was like, absolutely, I'm going to somehow just live with elephants. I didn't really know what it is to have a job with elephants at that age, but I was absolutely just obsessed with them. And so knew kind of like that wildlife route was for me. So I wanted to be a biologist, and then kind of went to uni, started to make really crappy videos for YouTube, and just for myself, really. Not many of my friends were really into that kind of thing. So
About what? What videos were they?
they were just like about my garden or
Oh, okay.
about anything on the it would be just not me talking to a camera. It was just crazy. And I remember posting some, and at the time they were getting like 10,000 views.
Wow.
Yeah. And then I panicked because I was like, this is kind of after sixth form, I knew I wanted to then follow a career as a biologist and a scientist. So I was like, I don't think I'm going to be taken seriously if I post these nonsense videos on YouTube. So I deleted them all. But before I did that, I got spotted by a producer who was trawling through YouTube looking for people who may be good presenters or talk about science.
So cool.
I got spotted. I couldn't believe it.
That's so cool.
Such a lucky break. And I did this interview. It was for the BBC. And that's how that's my first, I guess, step into that TV world. I knew I wanted to, my agent, Jo Sarsby, big up Jo, I've been with her ever since, she's amazing, but she was the top agent in wildlife presenters. And so I called her up and was like, hey Jo, take me on. She was like, no, you need to do more, come back in 6 months. So went away, made another show reel, came back. So there was lots of that kind of, you will take me on mentality kind of thing.
This is while you're studying as well, right?
Yeah, so this was, I'm trying to think actually the timeline of this. Yeah, I'd done biology A-level, and then I knew I wanted to go to university then. So starting uni, she eventually took me on, and then because I had that BBC gig, then it was kind of like her. She was like, okay, let's try you for 6 months, and I've been with her ever since. And slowly built up a career because I'm far from that end point. I've got a long way to go.
You're also very young still.
Yeah. If you're a lady on screen, you're up at 35, so I've got to get a bit of a move on. No, it's true.
Is it?
Unless you're Judi Dench.
Why is the geezers going till they're 99
because if you're a man, you look rugged, and if you're a woman, you look haggard.
Yeah, but that's what outdoors does to you. Male or female, we're still made out of the same skin.
I agree. You tell the TV industry that.
Okay, I'm with you. Okay.
Yeah.
It's not you, it's the industry.
It's the TV industry, 100%. But I will say on that, I was always, and I always will be, very impatient in the sense that I'm quite driven, and I have a plan as to where I want to go. And it's taken a while for me to kind of build that up. It's been a slow process. And actually now, with a bit of hindsight, I really have appreciated that. It's given me time to like build up who I am and have that confidence and knowledge and slight expertise. You know, I'm not there yet, but you know, you build up knowledge and experience with time. So
you've got some master plan, have you figured out?
Yeah.
Long term?
Yeah. Can't tell you what it is. No, I'm not being elusive. I just, it's a space that I'm very passionate about.
Yeah.
There is currently no real female lead in terms of adventure, wildlife and science. That combination you see with wonderful naturalists and presenters, legends, all men on screen. And I think it's time to like change the game with that a little bit, I think. I was,
and I mentioned this in the car to you, but that was something I was going to think about, like talk about. Whenever I think of that wildlife space, it's generally all men. I don't actually recall one female presenter. Yeah. Obviously, you've got your David Attenborough, who's the GOAT. Then growing up for me, it was like Steve Irwin.
Yes, the legend.
Obviously, he's not around anymore, but I think his son's doing something similar.
Robert, he's amazing. Robert Owen. I say that like I know him. I don't know him, but he's just an amazing naturalist. This is what I love about the Irwins, the David Attenborough. It's like the wildlife comes first, right? Mm-hmm. That's how they've excelled, because they are experts, they're passionate, they are genuine about the cause.
It was always the thing with Steve when he was like, this is the most dangerous snake, don't go near it, and then he's picking it up. You know, like he had this like mad aura. I remember being a kid watching him. But there not one woman. I can't think of one woman.
No, there are legends such as Sylvia Earle, who is an amazing marine biologist and deep sea explorer.
But just never front and center, I guess.
Now she is. But she's also, and being respectful, she's older.
Yeah.
So I don't know whether it comes with this whole, she is an older woman, she carries that wisdom and experience. So there's this gap where if you are a younger woman, and this is a whole thing within itself, but like, it's very true. There's an element of like, should she be taken seriously?
So I was just going to say, so is that thing something you feel, or is it actually a thing within the industry? Do you see what I mean?
Both.
You think there's a bit of both?
Well,
Yeah.
what do you think? When you go
I'm
to
on the
watch
outside.
something.
Yeah, I'm on the outside. From the outside, obviously, I don't see women doing those things. But
But let me ask you this. If you turn on a program
yeah,
and it was a female presenter, genuinely, talking about hanging off the side of a cliff and talking about the geology of the area, would you be more inclined to watch it or less inclined than if it was, say, a male? No names mentioned. But
I've got to be careful how I answer this.
But it's
if I feel that I have been programmed that the extreme macho-y stuff should be a man.
yeah,
And I'm not saying it should be, but I feel like in my head, growing up, that's always the image I've been given, right?
Yeah.
The geezer hanging off the cliff that's skydiving and whatever is this kind of James Bondy kind of guy.
Exactly.
And then the one in the dress drinking the cocktail is
the woman. Yeah,
and I'm not that I agree with that, but that's kind of like, I feel like that's the programming
It's
that
exactly
we've
it.
had growing up.
Yeah,
through
yeah.
media, through film, through whatever, traditions.
Exactly. Yeah. It's these
But
systems.
I wouldn't necessarily, I'm a bit of a curious guy anyway, as we were saying earlier, but I wouldn't necessarily not engage with it because it's a woman. It would probably be quite refreshing.
Yeah, I'd say.
I still haven't seen, I go on there sometimes, it's always men.
Yeah.
When I go on like a Geography Channel or Discovery Channel or any of those kind of stuff.
Yeah. And there's, I guess, and I don't like using this word so much, but it's like soft storytelling as well. Something that I hear in the background when we talk about ideas is like, I guess, delivery. And while women can offer a completely different perspective, and that in itself is fresh and exciting, I think a lot of people want to see that softer side because you are a woman. And it's not, as you say, it's not your fault that you think like that, because we are just part of a system that has always traditionally been like that. But I do feel there's quite an exciting change in the air, not to be whimsical, but it feels like there's something needed, there's a desire for it, and I'm going for it in some capacity, in the wildlife space at least.
Just while you were talking and I was thinking, I genuinely believe the ones that have done the best have had something about them, regardless male or female.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is, like, I watch some of your videos and your energy, the energy's there.
Yeah.
You're bubbly, you're energetic, it's quite engaging. I'm like, fucking hell, there's loads going on here. You know, Steve Irwin was the same.
Yeah.
Right, so he was this like
Passionate.
bubbly energy, passionate person. Then you've got, and David Attenborough works because he sounds like the Queen. Do you understand what I mean? Like it's almost so far-fetched the other way, because he sounds almost too posh to be talking about these animals.
Yeah.
But it works.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering now whether, like, you will excel in that because you've got your own kind of vibe going on there. I think if you got up, when you say scientist, and I mean this with respect, it sounds stiff.
It does.
It sounds boring.
You think of lab
sounds
coats,
stiff.
beards, older
like
man.
loads of paperwork, big glasses.
Yeah.
Like, so
always wearing goggles.
Exactly. So if you're coming on and doing a show, I think this is when I would disengage. If it was really like facts, figures, almost like watching those fucking COVID announcements.
Yeah, right.
You'd be like, oh,
yeah,
I'm done with it. But when when I watch some of your stuff and those other guys I'm talking about, it just feels, I don't know how to describe it. The energy feels real.
Totally. And I don't know whether it's because I am quite a passionate individual that I've kind of gone down the storytelling route, but I've always felt that it's like all this amazing information, this wealth of knowledge that we just can't access. The general public don't feel connected to. And that's where this magical combination of like science meets storytelling and wildlife film is like the sweet spot for me. And I need both, to be honest. It's something I've always done, probably not in full. You know, I'm doing a part-time PhD, I did a part-time master's. I'm kind of doing part-time wildlife film in a sense. And as a result, it's kind of been a slower progression. But I lean on both those worlds so much. You cannot discredit that we need the science integrity and that foundation of understanding to build up everything about our knowledge of the natural world. But if you genuinely want whoever is walking down the street to care and for there to be genuine change, you got to reach them. And delivering a scientific publication is not going to do it. You know, it's not going to do it. Why would you care about sharks?
And for the most of it, I wouldn't understand if I read the paper.
Exactly.
You're talking in jargon. It's like legal language, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I was literally, my next thing I was going to say to you is like, you've gone down the filming route rather than the conventional scientist route. Is that so that message can be portrayed, or is that just because you enjoy that part of it more?
It's the combination of the two. So I'm still doing my part-time PhD. So in 2 years, I will have finished. hopefully, if all goes well.
Is it really hard? Is it really hard?
It's not that it's hard, it's time management for me.
Okay.
It's that I take a while to get back into anything. So, we're on shoots for 2 weeks and we're having like minimal sleep and it's quite an intense period. So when I come back off of that, I'm saying, okay, I need like a week or 2 of just doing PhD stuff. And that's hard because I'm also trying to hustle and grow in other areas and there's talks and all the rest of it. So I'm very lucky to have a supervisor and be from a university that really kind of understands that and backs me in that way. But you need both. Like I have really
You're
found...
walking the walk, aren't you?
You have to. You absolutely have to. Because equally, it's not all about the presenting. Like that's one part of it. It's like I would also happily get into camera work. It's one of those where I'm finding my feet as well as I go along. But if I'm on a shoot and I'm meeting with a scientist, I love having those conversations with the scientist. And actually, I don't know how it is for other people who are not from that science world, but you do find you have a really good rapport with them because they're like, oh, you're also a scientist, you will understand, right?
Yeah.
So you build up that relationship with them and vice versa. Like if I'm doing, I'm in the wildlife film world, I'm able to kind of lean on both worlds essentially and switch between the two. But I need both. I don't know what happened long term, whether I'll go down the science route or the TV route or I don't know.
It feels like to me, if I was guessing from the outside, that as you physically became less able, you might then go down the science route because it's a bit less outside on the field.
Maybe.
So I'm
not 60 tired. Jesus.
Yeah, you've got a couple of years, yeah. Well, judging by
5
what you
years
said,
left.
judging by what you said earlier, you haven't got long.
So true.
In front of television.
Yeah.
Now that is mental, all of that.
But it's true, isn't it?
I mean,
100% people would what, and I don't want to sound like a raging feminist or somebody who's jaded by it all, but I think you have to be able to just highlight these things to change them, and that's just going to take a little bit of shouting about it and maybe going against the grain.
Also, the change, like you're changing you and the people around you, but if you're the only one doing it and every other woman still wants to go this way, it's very difficult to create that long-term standing change, right? Because you change it for your 50, 60, 70, 80 years that you're alive.
Yeah.
And then if no one follows your footsteps or trailblazes themselves, as you're doing now, it kind of just reverts back to as it was because it's familiar, because it's easy.
Yeah. I do think it is changing. And obviously I'm in my small bubble of wildlife film, but internally and behind the scenes, there's lots of conversations going on.
You guys, let's say you were filming in North America.
Yeah.
How many people is that crew?
Small crew, actually. So for that series, it's what we'd call a skeleton crew. So it's like myself, director, and then a cameraman or woman. But for this, it's cameraman, Joe. He's out in America. And then for
3 of you?
3 of you
One
as a skeleton crew. Well, and then depending on the scene and what we're filming, we'll bring in others on location. And that's for multiple reasons. Expertise. So for example, for Mobile Arrays, we did out in Mexico. There's an underwater cameraman who knows the ins and outs of the area, the wildlife and underwater, and then how to work with me as well in the water, something that Joe may not have any experience with. And then we might bring in other people as well, so fixers or a second camera. And the other reason we do that is obviously
budget.
There absolutely is budget. I'm like, you read my mind. Yeah. But also bring in local crew. So good.
Local knowledge.
And environmentally, it's bad to ship a crew of 15 people around the world for everything. And some crews do it, and I've done it on some things, but we try and avoid that.
You're really owning that, aren't you? That environment.
You have to.
Yeah, I like it. I rate it.
You absolutely have to. And
you're not doing the Greta thing where you're flying in a private jet and telling everyone not to drive.
Hey, no shade on Greta. She gets a train. I've seen it.
I'm just winding you up. I've not done any research on it. I just thought I'd trigger you a little bit with
it's working. Falling into the trap.
Yeah. I mean, what do you think's been the most challenging of your kind of TV shows to create for you?
Jaguar Journals was a big one. So we filmed for kind of many weeks on the ground in the Brazilian Pantanal. And it was amazing in the sense that we're showcasing the work of scientists and big cats. Who doesn't like jaguars? It's
amazing.
Awesome.
Yeah.
But I think the whole process was quite intense in that there was a lot riding on me being able to tag a jaguar in the wild for the first time, which was pretty mad for me.
I remember seeing this on social media.
Yeah, and there was a bit of...
in history, that was ever, wasn't it?
I don't like to say it as big as that, but it hasn't been done before. So it was kind of the first go with the team on safari who are amazing. I don't know. It was a lot there. I was kind of there as a scientist, there as a host, but kind of it was filming from dawn till dusk, literally camera in your face, record on. So that was a completely different style. And I love that because you can be reactive and there's intimate moments and there's wonderful moments with the scientists, but that was quite intense. You know, you don't get a moment just to kind of reframe, start again.
Is there any disruption to this wildlife when you guys are there podding and poking and filming?
For sure. Yeah.
But not in like a damaging way, is there?
I mean, if you were to disturb wildlife, then you've immediately ruined the shoot because any behaviour that reflects that, you can't use, nor do you want it, obviously.
Got you. Okay.
But for example, jaguars is a little bit different because a lot of these jaguars know the scientists' vehicles, so they're habituated. It's called habituation, and a lot of them are just like, oh, there's another one of the research cars. You'd never get out, but they've associated the research cars with like just kind of moving parts of the Pantanal.
Got you.
But for some other species, yeah, I mean, the minute you kind of disturb, interrupt any natural behaviour, it's a no-no. Absolutely no-no.
Any gnarly moments where you thought you were going to get fucked up by a big animal? Or like,
yeah,
any dangerous moments?
For sure. Yeah, there's, and of course there is. Yeah, there's moments where you get caught out in the field, extreme weather. Let's talk about the sharks. There's been a few sharky moments where just naturally it's a moving, dynamic environment, right? And I don't want to go down the whole sharks will eat you thing. But currents changing, maybe too much of a feeding frenzy. There's been a few circumstances like that where you're like...
You're swimming with them, yeah?
Yeah.
With a camera?
Yeah, sometimes sometimes...
They must come up and they're quite curious.
Oh, yeah, so curious. Like we did one in Florida recently with bull sharks. Amazing. Like huge bull sharks. Were like talking like 10-foot bull sharks, like enormous.
My sort of height.
Yeah.
My boys will be laughing because they're all like, you're 5'10", mate. I'm like, no, I'm 6'1".
It's all an illusion.
That's
why you do a podcast.
Prod around with the camera and that.
Bump the camera. Some fin nibbling for some species. So like blue sharks, I've had them nibbling on fins, but there's a few. It's so subjective on this.
It makes me nervous, that though.
No, but would you? Okay, so let me ask you: would you get in the water with sharks?
If I had a briefing, yes. But currently, no.
So it's
because I don't understand how they behave, right? So right now, it's like danger, danger, danger.
Exactly.
But if you went, no different to, I guess, we were just talking off air about the skydive. No one would jump out of a plane.
Yeah.
But when you've had the briefing and this parachute and you're sort of like, oh, okay.
Yeah, you know what to look for, you know what to expect. Same thing with sharks. It's so subjective to the species, the environment, who you're with, currents.
Ever been with a great white?
Not with great whites, no.
Mind you, we all talk about this great white thing. I was quite into sharks when I was young.
Were you?
Yeah, weirdly.
Do you have a favourite?
I used to like the tiger shark.
Oh, yeah, tiger shark's cool.
Because they look cool, you know, all that stuff with the pattern. But I was going to say, we all kind of afraid of the great white, but I was led to believe the tiger shark is actually more vicious, I should say. I don't know what the right word is. More prone to...
Yeah.
Like...
Curious.
Yeah. That's a polite way of putting it.
Yeah, it's funny. Bull sharks, tiger sharks are probably the two species that get the worst rep. And I'd say that's because they have the most exploratory bites. They're the most curious. They're also ones that are ocean wanderers. They're widespread. Mm-hmm. Bull sharks, you get in kind of, they're quite unique in that they push into like freshwater as well. They're quite coastal. So in terms of like the bites that you hear about on the sensationalist media, it's normally those two species and great whites in Australia and things like that. But it's funny because
Jaws didn't help, did it?
Jaws didn't help. They really screwed over the sharks, right? But every time there's this big kind of headline about someone being bitten or attacked, I actually read this really cool stat. It's so funny because you know when people are like, there's more chance of being squished by a vending machine than being bitten by a shark. Have you heard that?
I've not heard that one.
More chance of like being hit by a coconut out of a tree than being bitten by a shark.
Really?
Yeah. There was one that I loved. It was like between 1984 and 1987, 6,500 people got bitten by humans in New York in 3 years.
What?
Whereas on average, about 75 people got bitten by sharks. It's like my favourite fact. So careful with those humans.
Some of those facts are mad, but then you also think like you're with a human every day. When are you with a shark?
Totally. That, yeah, it's
without
true.
delving
yeah.
into much of that. But like
it's true.
percentage,
I love
everyone's
it.
like, you know, you got more chance of being in a car crash than a plane crash. Well,
Yeah.
fucking course you have. You're in
Yeah.
a car 8 hours a day.
Yeah.
You're in a plane once a month.
Yeah. But when you think of, and it's so interesting seeing how like the media plays on it. Some years they really latch onto it and it's sensationalist and it's blown up and everyone's going, it's a sharky year. But on average, like 70 to 80 people may come across and get attacked or bitten, injured, not
Per
death,
year?
but per year in the US, yeah. Per year. And you think about how many people are in the water.
That's not too much, no. I agree.
No, but...
And how big the...
Yeah. How many people live along the coast and are in the water every single day? And that number is generally quite consistent year on year, just by, people being in the water, right? But if you look through media, some years it's extra sharky.
Yeah.
And others it's not. So we're kind of pushing that.
That is interesting. Sharks have always been and also, aren't they like one of the old dinosaurs that are still alive? Sharks and crocodiles. I think they're the oldest two living. Have I got that right?
Yeah.
Species
absolutely.
that were around during
before
supposedly
dinosaurs.
So you believe in dinosaurs, don't you?
Oh, we're not going down this really. I don't believe in dinosaurs. Dinosaurs existed on this planet. It is not an opinion.
You don't do any like fossil-based stuff, do you? Yours is like living wildlife. You don't check for any kind of old school.
I mean, I actually, for the series, we've done a few bits doing some like fossil hunting and things, which is, I find it fascinating. But yeah, I mean, we have living dinosaurs. Sharks have been around for 400 million years. Dinosaurs were.
Crazy, isn't it?
So yeah, it's crazy.
I remember looking at your Instagram. I think it's still pinned for anyone that looks with that jellyfish.
Oh, love jellies, yeah.
But
that was in Cornwall.
Was it?
Yeah. Like 10 metres from the coast in Cornwall.
It was bigger than you.
Well, same size, just over. But basically, it was me and a friend, and we went around the UK to showcase how much you could see in a week. So the plan was to see orca, gannets, seals, minke whales, and blue sharks. Too windy to go out and do blue sharks. So we were like, let's just do a coastal dive. And then this huge barrel jellyfish came out of the murk. And it's just, it beat Trump in the news, like BBC News trending. It was like, went absolutely viral. It was bonkers. But amazing.
So you're I'm just trying to get my head around this. You're scuba diving.
Yeah, on scuba.
And it's pretty fucking dark.
Yeah, well. No,
and out of the darkness comes this giant...
barrel jellyfish, yeah.
And what do you think for that split second? Any like worry there or not really?
No, because it's a barrel. Again, it's that understanding.
Not a harmful one, really.
Yeah, barrel jellyfish. I mean, you might feel like a little bit of a tingle, but you wouldn't really get like a proper sting, see, like from a box jellyfish. The irony, though, it's kind of like, I don't know. I love jellyfish. And since then, I've gone on this whole thing where I'm like, tell me more, like found scientists that know everything there is to know about where they move and how they behave, because they don't just kind of float through the ocean like a big blob of nothingness. They do actually have deliberate movements up and down the water column, and they feed along our coasts, and they're a big part of our whole ecosystem, and linked with turtles, leatherback turtles that come to our waters here in the UK. So they're a big part of our seas. And as actually seas are warming, we're seeing more and more of these jellyfish, which is a whole thing in itself. But where was I going with that? Like we did a shoot in Australia.
Yeah.
And we were on the Great Barrier Reef, and I was with a local, and I had like this wetsuit on, but it was like sleeveless. And we'd been in the water for about 7 hours that day. And the next day we went and met with a box jellyfish scientist, Jamie Seymour. He's amazing. And he was like, we were just out sampling for boxes like yesterday. Where were you guys? And we realized that we'd been swimming in this water for like 7 hours, and there's boxes everywhere. And they're that big, right? So you wouldn't be able to see them. But if you get stung, you literally go into like 11 hours of what's being described as impending doom. Like you literally think your life is over.
How big are they?
They can be as small as your fingernail.
No.
There's like
multiple... no hope of seeing them?
No, not the small species. And tentacles like meters long.
Okay, so would I be able to see it?
Not the smaller species of boxes, no. No. I mean, you could, but it'd probably be too late by that point if you're looking in the eye of a like fingernail-sized jelly.
What's the one everyone's scared of? The War
Box. Oh, Man of War.
Man of War.
Portuguese Man of War, yeah. Yeah, again.
That's the one I hear about a lot.
Yeah.
With the sting.
Yeah. Boxes are going to be the ones where you like have a couple of hours before you die kind of thing.
Got you.
Depending on the sting level. But yeah, Portuguese Man of War are pretty bad.
They're the ones I think
pretty stingy.
I've heard people. And then, the other animal that really fascinates me is an octopus.
Yeah.
Is it an octopus? The one that like changes colour, it like can
Yeah.
fit into little holes and...
Yeah, it's amazing.
I watch them sometimes on TikTok. I get caught in like a weird...
wormhole.
Yeah. It's so odd.
It's actually amazing. So
You've seen one of those?
Yeah.
Big one?
Yeah. Actually, we tried to film giant octopus off the coast of Vancouver, but we didn't get any. So the plan is to go back next year. But I mean, they're incredible. They're covered, without going too sciencey, but they're covered in what's called chromatophores. So they're able to open and close depending on their environment and match their environment. I mean, it's one of evolutionary. It's like absolutely magical.
Mind blowing.
Mind blowing. Yeah, it's cool. Yeah.
They're like a little alien in the
Yeah.
sea.
Yeah, but they're clever.
The videos I've seen.
Yeah. There's a woman giant who has a really unique relationship with one giant Pacific octopus. It's like, what's that?
The program.
It's not that. Not with Craig, which you can go into. But we filmed with her last year in November, and she's extraordinary. Like, that one octopus will like follow her in to the coast and wrap tentacles around her arm. It's beautiful.
But not hurt her.
No.
It's like
No
an
intention.
endearment.
Yeah, it's a connection. Just, yeah, pretty unique.
What from the outside, it looks super fun, right? What you do. We see all these amazing photos of the seal and the jellyfish, and it looks amazing. Watch these wildlife programs, but like, kind of, what do people not see or know about the job that maybe isn't as glamorous or fun?
Yeah. We were talking about this earlier, weren't we? It's like you do it enough, I guess that glamour very quickly disappears. It's really hard work. It's all the work that goes into creating those really special moments. So things go wrong all the time on shoots, wildlife doesn't behave. You spend hours in often quite like remote places or quite harsh places out on the water or in rainforests, whatever, just waiting, sitting around waiting, not doing a lot. You have to be able to work in a team and have a good, I guess, amount of resilience, I think, because things can be hot and sweaty and people can get irritable. And if you are somebody who is quite impatient and not able to like work well in a team, then I don't think you're going to make it in wildlife film. It's like 90% waiting for 10% glory, but that 10% is like absolutely stunning.
Yeah. Well, that's what we see, right, on television.
Exactly, yeah.
It reminded me then, you said like it was about a year of filming in North America.
Yeah,
right?
yes.
A year of filming.
It'll take a year of filming, yeah.
What are you getting out of that? Is it a 6-part documentary, 6 hours?
That's literally it.
Is that it?
Yeah. I mean, you say it's not it, but it's
wild,
like,
isn't it?
Yeah, it's hours and hours and hours in the field.
I know from like an events perspective, we might film we've got a 10-hour festival in 2 weeks and we'll do a 2-minute show reel.
Yeah, right.
And there's 10 hours of documentation of video.
Exactly.
We don't film for 10 hours. Let's say we film for 5 hours.
Yeah.
But it ends up as a 2-minute video online. That's it.
Yeah. And sometimes there's multiple cameras. So like for the Jaguar journals, we had about a crew of 6 or 7. So you've got drone, you've got sound, you've got main camera, you've got second, you've got wildlife filmmaker camera. It's like, it's outrageous. You've got a whole team. So put that all together. And that was also 5 episodes. So.
Those editors are like wizards, aren't they? Because they could make or break the show. You could get the best footage.
Amazing. Yeah. And you need to have a good relationship with your editor as well, because they can make you look really silly.
I mean, how challenging is this lifestyle for you? Like to go to be exploring all the time.
Yeah.
You're never home. You're always away.
Yeah.
What does home mean to you?
Yeah, it's a funny time to ask that, I think, because I'm 30 now.
Yeah.
Personal life, it's difficult to get the balance, and there's no way of kind of fluffing that up. You do sacrifice a lot of your personal life. Like my sister just had a baby, and I didn't see him until he was like a month old, and then you're home for like a couple of days here, a week there, relationships. It's difficult. It's difficult to manage, but you kind of. And I don't want to sound too kind of wafty with this, but if you're going to do it, like in my opinion, like I want to work now and just I have a goal in mind. I know I want to go, and that is going to take some personal sacrifice for now. You can't ignore the fact that is obviously taxing, and like for just generally me and myself, and then the relationships I have, it's going to take its toll. But yeah, I think as it stands, like I'm prioritizing where I want to go in my career, and the time that I do have at home, I try to make it extra special.
Yeah.
I try to make sure I'm investing in ways that is going to be able to nurture those relationships that I'm able to still have. Because I've lost friends along the way that are just like, you can't meet up for coffee every week. So like, you know, you lose contact and then they're not interested in that kind of friendship. And I respect that. And you know, that's absolutely fine. But there's also ride or die friends who've known me since forever. And I may see them once every 6 months or every couple of months. And they're just like, it's like jumping straight back into it. Do you know what I mean? It must be the same for you.
They're beautiful, them ones, aren't they?
Yeah, they're the best. They're the best. They're the ones you really should nurture, actually.
Yeah. I mean, we spoke about this earlier, but there's periods of life in your life where you can't have balance. There can't be balance. If you're aiming to strive for something, to be in the top 1% of something, to be the best at something, you're going to have sacrifices. There can't be balance. You can't have it all. So you either want it or you don't want it.
But when do you decide, okay, enough's enough? Because equally, it's like, it's a mentality that I've always had. I've always been like very driven and I spend most of my year away.
Yeah.
Like I've been home for a few weeks this year. It's July. Wait, can I say that?
Over halfway. Yeah.
Yeah. It's over halfway. I've been home in the UK for a few weeks. And that's probably, I'm basically now booked till like mid-November. And then I'll have a break. And you're like, that is...
But this is what I was going to say to you a minute ago. So like that whole mindset of, because I was like this pre-COVID, I have a goal in mind.
Yeah.
Right? I have a goal in mind that when I get to X, I'm going to be Y.
Yes.
You know, like if I have this, I'm going to be happy. If I have that. But you within yourself need to put a hard line there, I think.
Yeah.
Because that's all consuming. It never ends. You know, there's that quote like the top of one mountain is the bottom of the next.
Yeah.
So every mountain you're hitting, you know, it might have been your degree.
Yeah.
Then it might be that you wanted to do
something else.
Australia. Then it might be America. But it never ends.
Yeah.
It was around before me and you were alive, and it's going to be around after we're alive.
So true. It's so
it's
true.
Like, how do we find contentment in, right, this is at a point in my career now where I'm going to put that to one side and concentrate on this now.
Yeah. But there's a difference between, and again, we spoke about this earlier, but this whole hustle culture, right? Which I think a number of years ago was a big thing. People were like, I'm up at 5 and doing 10 workouts before I've even had my breakfast. But I feel like I have moved away from that, and I have a bit more strategy. And that balance comes, I guess it's largely off balance in the sense that I am mostly doing work, but I absolutely love what I do. I know that in order for me to get to where I want to go, it has to be for now. And actually, I have been able to, the relationships that I have got in my life, I do maintain in a good way. You know, previous relationships I've had that have just, they've really been encouraging and haven't felt emasculated by, you know, the job that I do, which is a big part of it as well, right? It's quite like I'm a driven, quite outspoken sometimes.
Well, a strong, powerful,
loud lady
/ human.
Yeah, and it's one of those where it's like, that's not for everyone. And if that's not going to work as a result, then it doesn't work. But I think I have in many ways in my private life, because I am quite private about my personal life, and keep that offline. But yeah, I have been able to maintain, I guess, a handful of really strong relationships during that.
I also, what you said earlier resonated with me, that you love what you do, right? I don't also subscribe to this idea of work from 18 to 60 really hard to then chill for 20 years.
Yeah.
I don't really want to chill for 20 years because I enjoy what I do.
Yeah.
So I would always like to have a form of exercise a day, a form of mental challenge a day, whatever that is. Let's say some form of work, a coffee, a relationship, whatever it might
100%.
be. So if I can have all of that at some point,
yeah,
that for me, I feel like I've completed it.
Yeah.
I don't need to get to this thing where I can completely stop working, because I actually think that would kill me.
Yeah, same.
Like my mum and dad have been grafters their whole life. And I mean like full on grafters, like 20 hours a day in the hospitality industry. There's no real rest. It's carnage. And last year I kind of half retired them and said, look, I'm putting a manager in our restaurant now. You two go and live, because I don't know how many years you got left. I don't know what life's going to throw at you. And you've worked so hard to provide a life for me. I don't need that anymore. Like I'm doing my own thing. Yeah. I'm cool.
Yeah.
So I don't want to hear this excuse that you're doing it for me anymore.
Yeah.
Because you're not. You're doing it because you're addicted to
it,
which I get. And I drag them away from there. And every time I speak to them, they've gone on a few holidays and we've sent them away to see the world a bit.
Yeah.
But they're largely bored.
Yeah, it's a generational thing, isn't it? They don't know any different.
They're bored.
And but especially when you have being brought up like, again, not hustle culture, but like hustling.
Yeah, work.
I think that's it's a good ethos to have in life, I guess. Like you want to work hard for your personal life as well as your professional, and just unlearning some of those habits and behaviors. Isn't it funny how when you get older, you see your parents in a different light and you're like, I want to give back to you. That's been a really magical thing the past few years.
It makes sense.
Yeah.
It all makes sense. And they call it the ceremonial death. I think Jordan Peterson said it once.
Jesus.
But so like for a guy, for like I'm an only child, I'm a male.
That makes so much sense.
Yeah.
I do.
Spoiled brat.
I do.
But what I mean is like for all of my life, I've looked up to my dad as my hero, and he's like been everything for me, as my mum have, both of them. I'm very, very fortunate. But like there's a period in life where historically the dad would die and you'd become the dad. But there's also a ceremonial death is what he talks about, where you get to a certain point in your life is where they start asking you how to do X.
Yeah.
And you stop.
Interesting.
And they call that ceremonial death. And I've had that. I'm sort of like in the middle of that probably with my old man. So there's things that I still go to him for advice and mentorship and to keep me level and make me understand stuff still. But there's so much that he now comes to me. But it might be technology. It might be that he's not worked out how to do something.
That's
and
amazing.
It's quite a funny dynamic, right?
It's amazing, yeah.
And I now feel weirdly protective of them.
Yeah. That's
especially my mum.
Yeah.
Like a fierce lion around her. Whereas like they've always been protective of me.
Yeah. And that shift between like, I guess as a young person, they do give to you in a way, and then now you're able to give back to them. And that I remember sitting down opposite, like I have so much love for my stepdad. He's my dad. He absolutely is. He's been in my life forever. Mm-hmm. But there's something about my mum and the women in my family they've just quite been quite big influences for me. And I remember sitting down opposite my mum. It was like when I was 26, and I looked at her and I was like, you're a human. You're not just my mum. You are another woman who I am like, she's absolutely fabulous. She's in so many ways. My mum has got MS, and she's had it for a number of years. And my auntie, who's passed away now, sadly, also had MS. So it was a really difficult thing seeing how she declined, and then knowing that my mum's going to go the same way. But people forget my mum has MS because she just cracks on. It's weird.
Wow.
She'll have a stick, she'll go around, she'll do a thing. And I'm like, you can't walk up the flight of stairs. I forgot. She's got that like mentality. It's the most bizarre thing. But it's phenomenal.
This goes back to the generational thing, right? I think a lot of that grit has slowly or is slowly being taken out of us.
Yeah.
Life is getting comparatively easy.
Easy, totally.
And the more easy, I mean, my fucking pencil I'm using for this iPad isn't even a pencil.
Electronic pencil.
This is what I'm saying. Like,
you are the future.
It's just everything is automated.
Yeah. And maybe I'm a bit old school in the sense that I see that, and that makes me really like panicked. I don't know. Like I of course use social media. Of course I do. It's like a big part of promoting what I do. And then the wildlife film industry is all about tech and that evolution of tech and how we live and lifestyle. But there is a big part of me in my private life which just likes, I don't know, a beer and a walk in a woodland.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Just grounded.
I think
realness.
Your job probably allows you to see the world slightly different to, say, my job.
Yeah. Maybe.
Yeah, I live a lot online. You know, most of my promotion and work is done on technology in terms of I'm not actually out there, not breathing the fresh air, not touching the fresh water, not seeing the animals.
I wouldn't agree with that though, because
Really?
the way you are, the way you've been brought up and who you are, a very sociable person, you are front facing to a lot of people. And I think that does separate you from, say, that new generation that don't know how to talk to others and don't know anything outside of that screen. It's scary.
Yeah.
It's so scary. Yeah, I see it all the time actually with younger people. It's kind of terrifying, but
I do wonder where that's going to go. I always think about it because at some point I'd like to have kids myself. And I think, right, bringing kids into this world, what world are they coming into? What world do I want to leave them?
yeah.
Like within my power, obviously. I can't control it all, but I can
As
control
much as we
my
try
little,
in this room.
Yeah, I can control my little.
Yeah. I do think it'll eventually go away from social media. I think it'll move away from that and people will lose interest.
Mhm.
It's such an addictive, negative influence on all of us. I think that maybe we'll be part of a generation when people are like, remember those losers who would like post silly reels every day on Instagram?
We were one of them.
I think we'll move away from it, actually.
We were one of them.
Yeah. In the same way that I think younger generations now are moving away from, I guess, they have a more kind of international perspective. I think
Yeah.
people are more aware of the environment internationally, of like being open and dating outside of their norms. It's like it's opened up in big, exciting ways.
For sure. Hi guys, while I've got you, I wanted to announce an exciting new sponsor for the show. For those that know me or listen regularly, you'll know that I'm a big combat sports fan, and some of my favourite kit to use when training is by a brand called Venom. Fellow combat sports fans will know Venom as the UFC's official outfitting apparel partner. They have clothing and equipment for MMA, boxing, Muay Thai and BJJ. However, what I'm most excited about is their new lifestyle range, some of which I'll be rocking on the show. It's a privilege to partner with a global brand such as Venom. Will it make me a better athlete? Probably not, but at least I'll look good doing it. Let's touch on it because it keeps coming up in terms of environmental kind of stuff. But like, you see a different light than what I see, right? I'm getting in my car every day, driving to the same beach. Yeah. Nothing looks like it's changing. The water isn't rising or sinking. And I'm going to the same coffee shop. But like, what are some of the biggest threats facing wildlife today that you've uncovered with your work that you think that we might not see? Or changes you may have seen in the last 5-10 years that you've been doing it, whatever you've been doing it?
It's funny because when you're in the field and you're faced with a genuine impact, anthropogenic impact, so it could be sea level rise, it could be entanglement, and you see that. You see whales and birds wrapped up in plastics and drowning or already dead. And it's when you're faced with that, it is quite shocking because a lot of people see snippets of it on social media and they scroll on. Do you know what I mean? I've spoken to climate refugees here in the UK, the ones who are literally unable to sell their house because they know their house will be underwater in the next 50 years. And there's already signs of that coastal erosion. That's in the UK.
Is it?
Yeah. I won't say where.
No, it's fine.
You'll be able to find it easily.
Guess,
but I mean, there's the other side of this is like we here in the Western world and the global North are so protected from a lot of these impacts, we think, right? So we see it as like this thing that we just read about in the news, this sensational media about wildfires and flooding, but it is such a reality, especially for the global South. So we're seeing mass deforestation. I was in Brazil and we saw this enormous storm, out-of-season storm come through. There was literal trees falling on buildings and cars, and they're just having to deal with it right now. I know there's wildfires ripping through that whole place we were filming with the jaguars. So I was chatting to one of the scientists the other day and she was like, you remember that jaguar, Farah? Her whole habitat gone, dead. It's like...
Wow.
It's scary. It's scary. But us sat here in the studio, it's hard to be able to convince you that that is a matter of urgency. And I understand that as well. I think the reality of it is we'll only really care when it impacts you and your gran and your auntie and your future children. When you see that, and that's where the connection and the storytelling comes in, right? Because until now, it's kind of this far-fetched, oh, that's a wildfire in Spain. It's a flooding in Italy, you know? It's not something we can tangibly see. So it's an enormous subject and an enormous issue, but unfortunately we're reaching tipping points now in terms of just global temperatures and impacts where because we're at these tipping points, once we pass those, it's going to be really hard to come back. And so I think that's where this whole wave of urgency and mass crying that we're seeing from conservationists and protesters, that's why everyone is shouting about it, because this is right now very important.
Yeah. I mean, whose burden is it to resolve it? Do you see what I mean? It's such a, it's because where do you begin? Like a lot of people, if I speak to 10 people out on the street, let's say, 3 of them care about it, 3 of them don't give a shit, and 3 of them don't believe it.
Yeah.
And there's, well, my maths is a bit shit, but there's one person living. But you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that one
I know
person's
exactly
having a
what you
coffee.
mean. Yeah,
But,
yeah, it's true.
But so what I'm saying is that when you say climate change, because I don't want to get too into it and like whatever, but it's like,
go for it.
I feel like we as humans, we always need a crisis. We need something that's keeping us on our toes.
Yeah.
And when there's nothing, no wars, no nothing, we revert to climate change, especially in the West. If you look around and listen, maybe not in your circles, but in that general public, there's something we're moaning about, something that's happening somewhere in the world that's really bad. And when there's nothing left, it's climate change.
Wars. Yeah.
It's climate crisis. And they've renamed it recently to climate crisis, by the way.
Yeah.
Because not global warming, because they realise it's actually not warming. Is that right? Or is that a bit of a myth?
It is warming.
Okay, fine.
But I think the urgency of it has probably been labelled. Same way there is also a biodiversity crisis that no one talks about.
Yeah.
And in that sense, I agree with you. It's labelled as a crisis. But I mean, that is the reality of the situation. It's because, if you think about it, it's all about the people, right? So the wars, the political, everything that's going on, it all comes down to the people. And with the climate, I think we've for a very long time seen ourselves as separate to or above the environment, or not part of it. And that's a societal thing. We've created whole cities and a lifestyle that is separated from that. And so naturally we're going to go, oh, I remember the environment. Or you go on holiday for 2 weeks and you go to an amazing waterfall and rainforest and you're like, that's fun for 2 weeks, and you're back to your normal office job. So that separation, unfortunately, for the environment has created this wedge in us feeling like we have a responsibility. And that responsibility lands on all of our shoulders. However, to say one person has to go vegan and recycle everything and do everything they possibly can, and if they don't, they're evil. That's just, it's not the right approach. Everybody has to fit it into what they can do in their lifestyle. I've had vegans be like, I've had whole arguments with vegans, and then gone and filmed in small communities in the Amazon rainforest, and they go out and hunt howler monkeys, and their food is meat because that's how they feed their kids. That's how they live. You can't tell them to be vegan.
Yeah.
It's such a subjective thing. But ultimately, in terms of the overall responsibility, we as individuals, if we all did our bit, we would make a shift. But we need to be focusing on the big bad.
There's two things I take away from that's reminded me. One was, I think you're right in terms of, because the climate change issue isn't affecting, at this stage, we can't see it affecting humans, our lives.
Yeah.
It's like out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah.
Some whale has died on the other side of the planet. Oh, that's quite sad on TikTok for a second.
Carry on.
And I just get back in my car and drive to the coffee shop.
Exactly.
But I think if tomorrow, and this is what we saw with COVID, which is interesting, if tomorrow your uncle or auntie died, that was something directly linked to that, you may find it shifts your mind in terms of what. But it's whether we're ever going to lose human lives in our lifetime from that, for it to make that change.
It's happening. It's just not here in the global north. Yeah. It's not here in the Western world.
The other thing is like, I read something or watched something, again, I don't know if it was propaganda or true or not, but it was something along the lines of, propaganda. I'm probably going to butcher this, but it was something along the lines of, if the whole West, like the whole of England, stopped eating meat and did X, Y, and Z, apparently it would change like 0.0001% of the carbon, whatever.
Yeah.
The majority comes from poverty-stricken countries.
Yep.
And if you're a mother or a father and your option is to feed your child or recycle that plastic,
exactly,
you're feeding your child.
Exactly.
And so you should.
Yeah.
So this is the thing about the triaging, right? We're always going to we're innately, if you look at like, what was that book? Sapiens.
Yeah.
There used to be 6 or 7 human races, and Homo sapiens, us, we've killed them all. We're the only ones that survived.
Yeah.
Because it's all about survival. So when shit hits the fan, we're always going to look after ourselves.
Yeah.
First and foremost.
Of course. Yeah.
But how are we seeing? We're never going to see the shift then, really, because
we will
unless global poverty is gone.
We will see the shift, because we are already seeing those environmental impacts playing out, and that, unfortunately, when it's too late, I feel like is when people are going to go, Oh, we should have done something about that. When they're literal houses, your uncle and auntie's house tumbling into the sea.
But what can the average Joe, someone listening to this, what's one thing they could do that might help? What, recycle more? Because 90% of our recycling goes in landfill in England. We don't have enough recycling centres.
Yeah, I think recycling's like this.
I spend hours washing the fucking beans
And you
off the
should.
pot,
And you
put it
should.
into recycling.
You should.
And then a friend of mine tells me it doesn't even go into recycling, it goes into landfill.
No, you should. But like, I don't know, like the straws, plastics, recycling, again, it's like a marketing ploy to get us all to feel like we're doing our bit. And there's bigger systems going on. There's oil giants that are still exploring new areas. There's businesses that are thriving and doing these small statements and green pledges to be able to tick a box, right? I feel that our energy should be put into the bigger picture. And that does influence us in the sense that what we drive, what we wear, where we go, how we travel, how we communicate, everything like tech we use is a big one as well. Is going to influence that. But it's really, I really back in the day was pushing us as individuals, and I agree with you. At a very baseline, everyone should be recycling and doing all these things and at least being aware. But they're not the bad people in this. It is the big corporations, the organizations that are carrying on and that have whole marketing teams dedicated to look like they're doing their bit, and then behind the scenes are just exploring a new part of the ocean for exploration of oil.
Commercially, it's like a tick box thing, isn't it?
Yeah, it's clever.
They're
That's
like,
what it
we're
is.
now using these straws, we're now doing X, we're now doing Y.
It's so clever.
But it's not
Yeah.
in reality what's going on behind the scenes.
It's scary. It's scary, especially with exploration for resources like oil is a massive one. Big oil giants still just bulldozing through unprotected areas. There's actually a stretch off the coast of Wales called the Celtic Deep. It's an amazing stretch of wild water, and you get loads of sharks migrating through. And in the summer months, it's pumping full of tuna and blue sharks and porbeat. It's absolutely stunning. Not protected. There's sections of it that are, but a lot of it isn't. And I've seen trawlers go through there and whole kind of areas being just dumped on. You know, you get ships, which is a big part of like out of sight, out of mind, just literally dumping rubbish, finning, all this kind of illegal activity that is just going on that we've got no idea about. Meanwhile, we're recycling.
Yeah.
It's crazy, isn't it?
It's such a paradoxical thing because I don't know how to describe it. There's almost so many problems globally to fix.
Yeah.
Where the fuck do you start?
Yeah. And I
like, do you know what I mean? Sometimes it's exhausting
100%.
thinking about it.
It
because,
is.
Yeah, I'm going to clean that tub and put it in that recycling bin. I'm going to make sure my recycling bin goes out.
Yeah.
But the 40 million people that live over there aren't doing it.
Yeah.
So at some point as a human, you're like, well, fuck that. If they're not doing it, I'm not doing it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I understand that logic. It's this climate doom. It's doomism, if you can say that.
Yeah.
It's come from the absolute sensationalist media hype that has created this, like, all this information, it's too much. People are becoming like disengaged, desensitized by it. They don't want to know. They don't want to be told the world is ending and it's all on your shoulders while they have to like feed their kids or just live a normal life. Like, it's too much. And that's, again, not to come back to kind of the storytelling side of it, but that is where those specific stories I feel like shine through, because you might find a way of connecting with that individual or story or species that you didn't before. And that may be your commitment. You may be able to do all you can in your day-to-day, but you might all of a sudden love vultures or love crocodiles or sharks, and that's your bit.
Is it visible in your line of work? Is there somewhere
Climate
you've
change.
been or a species that you've seen that is now either extinct or dying or, you know, to do with climate change? Is there a beach that was there that now isn't? Is there something that in your period that you've been doing this, you've visually seen?
Coral bleaching is a big one.
Okay.
Let me think of a specific example.
You know what I
actually.
mean? Because
know
at the
exactly
moment it's
what
like
you mean.
theories. Oh, if this happens, that will happen.
Yeah.
But I've never had someone sat in front of me going, well, I went to that beach 10 years ago. It's no longer a beach. It's now underwater.
Yeah.
Or
yeah,
there was this turtle living here. They're now all extinct.
Yeah.
Like there's...
Yeah.
Is there anything that you've noticed in your time? Maybe not yet, but...
I guess there's lots of hints of that. I mean, I filmed with species that are on the brink or critically endangered, and there's a last population and scientists are doing what they can to protect it. I think that as an example, we were scouting a location. So we went to Australia to film the first series of Deep Dive, and we were scouting this location where there's this small island of turtles, and tiger sharks hunt turtles off this island. It's amazing. large population of turtles nesting there. And the temperature of the sand dictates the sex of the turtle that comes out of that egg, which is pretty cool. So
it's insane, yeah.
I think it's 39 degrees. I might have to scrub that out.
Yeah,
I think it's 39 degrees, but if it's
I'll ask David Attenborough.
below that, it's they all come out as male, and if it's above it, they're all female. It's a very cool.
That's wild.
It is wild, but with the temperatures rising, we're getting one sex, and so as a result, the numbers of turtles are declining.
Yes.
Or it's just an imbalanced population, and so that'll be the end of that kind of subpopulation of that species. And we wanted to film there. I wanted to follow that story and look at the tiger sharks there, but the island itself is actually, a lot of it now you can't access because of sea level rise. So that is it's a thing. It's totally a thing.
We just don't notice it here. I don't know whether because they keep pumping sand on our beaches. They've always been 10 metres long and they're 10 metres long. I've been alive for 36 years. Do you know what I mean? So it's like...
It's pretty magical.
It's quite hard to connect with it because I just can't see any different.
Yeah, and
I see the odd
do
landslide.
understand that. Yeah.
And I see the random dolphin or seal washing up, which is bizarre. Yeah, now we see a little bit.
Do you go snorkeling in the sea or anything? Do you like the water?
I like the water, yeah. I like the water.
Do you get in it?
I do. I get in it most mornings, but not in a turn. More like a dip after a run.
Yeah.
And more like chilling.
Not like looking through the kelp.
Yeah, not really. No, I would do. I'm quite interested in doing like some of the not spear fishing, but that kind of diving that you would do around the rocks.
You should.
Just finding who to go with and how to go, and I'm going to end up drowning out there myself.
What's that floating turtle?
In some cave. I mean, I grew up pretty. I lived obviously in Swanage in my early years. I did a bit of wakeboarding. I was in the sea a bit.
Yeah.
I jet skis myself growing up.
Yeah.
So I do like it.
Connection with the sea.
Yeah, I do like it, but it's not like. I mean, your job, right? Do you have to be physically in great shape to be able to do this job? And if so, like, how are you preparing for?
Yeah.
You train while you're out there?
I have some bits that I take out there. When I'm home, I try to like train as much as I can. I personally like to feel very fit if I'm on an expedition.
Does that help?
I think it does, yeah. I mean, you get stuck in, hopefully. If you're a good member of the team, then you're carrying a lot of kit. Like in January, we were out trying to find coastal wolves, and that involved lugging about, I think it was about 150, 200 kgs worth of kit, 2 people from one area to another, 5K, and you're going over sand, tides, and forests, like thick forests, following the trails of wolves, right? It was the most intense thing I've ever done. It was intense, back and forth. Took like a day from like the minute we got there till nighttime.
You're following the trails of what wolves are they?
They're coastal wolves.
So
there's a population of wolves that they've evolved in these coastal environments. They eat largely marine life or depend on the marine ecosystem for food. And so as a result, over time, they've kind of differentiated from the wolf that we know that's called the timber wolf or the grey wolf that you get, in Europe or in Yellowstone.
I think it's the grey wolf that looks cool.
Yeah.
Now you're chasing these wolves. What happens if one turns around and you're carrying 150 kilos of lug that you can't run?
Yeah.
Then what?
Well, it depends. It depends on the scenario. I tell you what, I'll talk you through a different wolf encounter that I had where this actually happened.
Okay, go on.
So up in Arctic Canada in March, I was with a friend. We were doing a recce for a series, and it was like -50 wind chill, and we were literally following the fresh footsteps every day of this wolf pack. They're called cloud wolves, and they're like double the size of coastal wolves. They are enormous, like up to here on me. Absolute monsters, yeah. Pack of 8. Amazing pack, and we had followed them for multiple days. We'd seen them, we'd got some good footage of them, and then we found them like 40 kilometers across this frozen river, sat on a riverbank, and it was myself and 3 others, and we just sat on the snow machines on this frozen river waiting for them to do anything, and waited there all day. Of course, did nothing all day until we were about to leave, and then they got up and they walked over, and that was the first time I've had like a real like. Obviously no weapons, nothing like that. Just a real interaction with a wild pack of wolves that aren't used to humans. And they came over, they trotted over this frozen river, and they were from like me to you away.
You shoot yourself.
Outrageous. I was like almost in tears. I was just like, this is outrageous. Just checking us out. And then they went off to go on a moose hunt into the forest.
They didn't do anything?
No, they just, No, they were curious.
Well, what does well mean?
Well, because if I was...
my partner's off the leg, but...
Well, there's not 4 of us who came back. No, it was the fact that there was a few of us together. And so they came over to assess us to see if we could potentially be prey. But it would never happen in a clap of the hand. They'd be like, oh, and they'd probably be spooked off. But one of those interactions where you're like, wow, this is what it means to have an interaction with a wild animal.
What, like looking you in the eyes? You're looking the wolf in the eyes?
I'll have to show you the video. Like from me to you, kind of smelling the air and being like, what are you? And then sat down and then sniffing around me. And then after about 10 minutes, they got bored and then went off to hunt moose.
10 minutes is a fucking long time.
It was amazing.
10 minutes is a long time.
Heart pumping, just like in those moments though. And you hear this a lot about like, weren't you like really scared? But I find it with sharks as well. There's a weird moment of peace. I don't know, it's really calming. I think it's because you're like embedded in that moment and you're like, this is what it means to have that wild encounter. I don't know what it is. It could very easily switch, do you know what I mean? But
do you know what I find in those moments of peace when you're up against extreme danger?
Yeah.
I've not been in a wildlife position, but I've been in other positions where you weirdly find peace. And I think it's you knowing that no matter what happens next, you have no control.
Maybe that's it.
And you let go.
Maybe that's it.
Do you understand what I mean? Like, you know, at that moment, it could be all over and there's nothing you can do. Whether you run, sit, cry. So you like have this kind of stillness.
Acceptance.
Yeah, like weird, not out of body, but kind of.
Yeah. It's also, this is again, it's going to sound super wafty, but you realize how insignificant you are in those moments and that this would all be going on anyway without you. And that we in human history are a tiny blip. Do you know what I mean? And in the natural world landscape, I feel that those moments I actually do crave because you're like, okay, I am so insignificant in the bigger picture. I don't know. It's kind of like a humbling thing.
Wolves are so cool. I like
They're
wolves.
amazing. We didn't see any coastal wolves, by the way. We spent 10 days like schlepping around Vancouver Island.
Following them, as in following footsteps?
No.
Okay.
We just found the odd like dead otter or whatever.
Dead otter?
Yeah.
Poor otter.
Oh yeah, it was amazing, but didn't see a wolf. So there you go.
And then like, I guess before I go on to this next one, actually, following on from the fitness thing is like, for anyone that's listening, what's the overall process of planning your trips? How do you anticipate like unexpected demands of the environment? Is there...
That's a good question.
Is there something you do or you just sort of pack what you can?
For fitness or just anything?
Or in general? Yeah,
I mean, a lot of it's kit, having really good kit. So annoyingly being a generalist, I've kind of got lots of various kit that I like to use. And over the years, you kind of figure out what works for you, what suits you. You know, hiring in kit, I still hire in kit. You can't have everything. But having your own equipment that you know and love is like the best and is the safest. In terms of like general prep, I mean, it's kind of a long pre-production process. You know what it's going to look like, what you're doing. There's some stuff you just can't plan for. It's part of it.
What if you're doing an Arctic filming?
Yeah.
Would you do some time here being in the cold and getting used to the cold or any of that kind of stuff or not really?
No, not
okay,
really,
fine.
no.
Because I suppose you got all the gear on. It's not like a...
Yeah. It's just a completely different discipline. I mean, you're not going to replicate it, are you? You can replicate, I guess, like having that. So, for example, in November, we went up to film muskox in Norway.
Yeah.
And that was hours and hours of pulking and like really heavy, thick snow that you're wading through. And it's like minus 35. It's like pretty intense. But as long as you've got like a good level of endurance and you've got all the right layers as well, like women tend to get a bit more cold than men. So I love the layers. I will overlay, I'll over prepare just because there's nothing worse. But even then I kind of messed up with that, but that's a whole nother story.
I'd always rather be warm.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But I love that. Do you like the cold?
Yes and no.
Really?
Yeah, like I feel like I'm quite good with it. I'm always in shorts and t-shirt, as you saw in the coffee shop there. Yeah, apart from today. But like even in the middle of winter, I will wear, even if I'm wearing, say, tracksuit bottoms, I would wear a t-shirt and a body warmer. I like my arms out. I like to feel, I don't like being too layered. Yeah. Showing my guns. No, there's nothing left anymore. Too much running.
All the running.
Yeah, literally. Talking of running, Lizzie, it says here that in 2022, Lizzie completed a 140-kilometre solo run in the Finnish Arctic Circle, which saw temperatures of minus 35 degrees.
Yeah. So
You kept that hidden well.
Yeah.
You struggled with 5K this morning.
I was like that. It's been a while. No, so okay. I've only ever done like 3 main challenges. So I did the London Marathon when I was 19 and loved that. And running's been a big part of just, I guess, my downtime, I guess, like unloading. And then I ran 200, it sounds so like wafty, but I ran 250 miles in Portugal.
Miles?
Yeah. That was...
Fucking hell, okay.
I usually do miles, but I don't know why it says 140k. Anyway, whatever. Sounds more impressive, I guess.
Yeah, I think it's on your website.
Yeah, 250 miles in Portugal. So it was like back-to-back marathons for like 10 days, essentially, when I was early 20s, yeah. And that was great. But again, it was just for a charity. It was kind of not an official thing. I think I got that appetite for like knowing that I can do these challenges. And everyone loves a good physical challenge. Now everyone's done a marathon. I think it's wonderful. But the Arctic one was, again, for me, I was writing a story about changing Arctic environments for Sidetrack magazine, and just went by myself. I wanted to do it in a cold environment, love the cold. It was awesome. No TV crew, no film crew. It was just like...
Where are you sleeping?
So there's cabins along the way, like wilderness cabins.
So you have to plan that a little bit.
Yeah. Plan the route, and it was in the middle of winter as well, so those trails closed.
So 140k. How many days you split that across?
It was running for... I was there for like 5 days. I ran for like 3 and a bit days in the end because stuff went wrong.
Wow, so that's over a marathon a day as well. Or around
maybe it was 4 days then. I was running for 4 days. It was under a marathon a day, yeah, but consistent running. It was a lot, and it was winter, and it was dark, and it was intense, and it was... But I think I did it for me, that one. That was more of a like, see if I can do it. And everything went wrong. Like water froze, and I was like...
Was that cold?
Yeah, like one of the cabins, the warmest it got after the fire was on for like 4 hours was like minus 10 in the cabin. So it was like cold.
You never get like... I get you're an adventurer, like a real life Indiana Jones wannabe, but do you never like on your own in a cabin with fire in the middle of nowhere, probably with no reception?
Yeah.
Are you all right with that?
Yeah. Yes.
Like a closet psychopath.
Weirdly, I feel...
I'm inspired by it.
It's a different level of contentment. Also, when you're on those challenges, there's something really beautiful in like the simplicity of being like, I need to now eat food. Now I need to sleep. And then you wake up and you're like, now I need to write. I don't know, there's like quite a methodical, therapeutic process that comes with that. It's all very simple. No tech, no having to think about what I need to say to camera, all of that, which is a large part of my outdoors experience, right? So yes, I get to adventure a lot of the time, but a lot of the time it is for TV. And so just having those selfish now and again expeds and experiences is actually for me quite therapeutic. And I like my own company.
They're like escapes for you, aren't they, by the sounds of it?
Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. I had some proper lows on that trip. I was like, what the heck am I doing here? What is going on? That's more normal.
Okay, that's good.
Like you have moments where you're like, am I a psychopath?
Yeah.
And then you have this euphoria that comes with it. So, but that's part of the battle, I think. Right?
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy.
And you've got to try it.
I think that's on the list for me, one of those things. I've like been dipping my toe into things.
Yeah.
Generally pretty local stuff and not, as you said, stuff that we do rather than an official something.
Yeah. What would you do?
I don't know. I quite like the running element.
Can I suggest that if you do one of those, go to somewhere where you be able to experience the environment and embed yourself in the environment. Yeah.
Rather than just round here, like...
Yeah. Marathons are great, and all these events are wonderful experiences and incredible feats of endurance. But there is another level of calmness that comes with doing it, like, say, from A to B through an epic mountain landscape or through a rainforest. Yeah. Honestly, it's...
feels like it excites me, actually, that adventure element of it.
Yeah.
But you know what it is? Like, I'll do this with you now. I'll spend probably 2 days after this actually Googling these things.
Yeah.
And then life just comes along and...
Of course, yeah.
I blink and a month's gone by.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, fuck, I really wanted to do that.
Yeah. And it's so far removed. It's like...
Unless someone like you or one of the lads I roll with went, oh, boys, I'm doing this thing. It's on this date.
Yeah.
Who's in?
Yeah.
then it's a bit easier to jump on it, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah,
Or
yeah.
then organising. It's a fair play to you. You organise that all yourself, that Arctic one.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
All the route planning, all the...
Yeah. I mean, stuff went wrong. Like I also had like a watch which is amazingly accurate. So it would tell me every time I was like 10 meters off the trail that I'd set out. The hardest thing was that it was just winter trails. So I remember seeing this woman in a small town in Finland, and I let her know, obviously, just for safety. I was like, FYI, I'm going to be running. If I'm not back by this day, maybe call someone. And she was like, you're crazy. She was like, and then she was like, by the way, this trail's closed, this trail's closed. So we did like a last minute like change of stuff, which was this part of it. But it was a very rewarding experience. I'd like to do another one at some point, but I don't know what it would be.
Keep me posted on that.
Yeah, I will.
What's your proudest achievement so far?
Personally or professionally?
Either. What's the first thing that jumps into your mind? Don't think too much. Don't sugarcoat it.
Well, the first thing that went into my mind was kind of this very sentimental thing with my mum, actually.
Okay.
I'm very passionate about accessibility into nature, and it's crap, to be honest. And as I said, my mum has MS, and a few years ago, I'm taking her to see the Northern Lights in November, which is a massive thing. Very excited. She's always wanted to see it. I'll send her pictures like out of a plane with Northern Lights. Like, wait, seen him again? She's like, you suck. So I'm going to take her into the Arctic in November. But a few years ago, I was like, I'm going to take you to see orca, and to really see orca, see them properly. So we went up to Shetland, and it's one of the few places in the world where you can see them from land, and they push round and they follow the bays, and they're incredibly close to land. You can be from like me to you away from an orca.
Wow.
It's phenomenal. Yeah, some of my best encounters. So I was like, we're going. And we went and we had the most magical experience. And she was watching a whole pod hunting for seals in a bay. And she was like bawling. And I was bawling. It was just like a really rewarding experience. Magical, yeah.
That's like a core memory there, isn't it?
Core memory. And that's where I'm like, okay, I get it. Like the switch is happening, I want more of that. Whether she does or not.
Poor woman dragging her up.
We're going to the desert next. No.
Yeah. I love it.
Yeah, it's pretty rewarding.
You're working a lot with environmental stuff and wildlife, and you're obviously very passionate about it.
Yeah.
And you want to make some change. What do you want your legacy to be?
So there's a few things around that. I want to change the game when it comes to, I guess, who's telling these stories. So I think the female voice in that space is really needed. And I think that's a big focus for me. But in terms of, I guess, legacy for the environment, I guess this breakdown of that separation that I was talking about earlier is like, there's so much, it sounds again, so I'm trying not to be like super like.
No, this is perfect. For a podcast, go on, waft away.
Insert quote here.
This is where you can do it. You're in a safe space.
I don't know, I see it everywhere. There's so much division, right? Whether it's race, background, whatever it is. But it genuinely is the one thing that like we are all connected to. And it does sound so wafty, but I'd like to think that everyone has got their role to play and feels that ownership over their little wild corner or benefits from the environment, like mentally, physically, like has that kind of deep understanding that they care, they should care, and they're part of it.
Yeah.
I think that's what I want. I want people to feel what I feel when I look at a slug or a snail, I want that.
Slug or a snail? Most people step on them, don't they?
No.
I don't worry. I'm one of the guys that picks
them.
a spider out from the house and puts it outside rather than squishing it.
Nice. That's good to know.
The only time I've ever done that is if I'm in danger.
Oh.
If a bee keeps stinging me, I'm going to...
Keep stinging you? How many times have you been stung by a bee?
I got stung when I was young, swearing on my middle finger. It was like instant karma, honestly. My dad still talks about it now.
Hey, do you want
I
to
went
know
like that and it stung me on the... You couldn't write it.
My mum had a wasp in her head once.
What do you mean?
It like went into her ear and went into her head. She had to go to hospital until it died.
No.
For real. She like could hear it buzzing.
How did they get it out?
They just had to wait for it to die.
So it was in more in
it
like
went into her ear and then like went in like into her like cavity. Yeah, crazy.
That is wild.
Yeah. Anyway, I digress.
What's next for you
So next, we're filming Deep Dive. That'll
Yep.
be to the end of the year. We've got a new BBC series as well. That's we're filming that this summer, which I won't tell you too much about for now, which is so annoying, but is what it is. And then next year, the plan is to start filming series 3, which we're pitching for now for Deep Dive. I think the plan is to...
In a different country?
It'll be, yeah. So the first one was in Australia. This is North America. So I think maybe South America. We'll see.
That'd be wicked.
There's a few ideas in at the minute. So we're going to see what happens with that. And then PhD, the plan is to crack that out in the next 2 years. And then who knows?
And then maybe take a holiday.
Yeah, sure.
Maybe
Sure.
sit on the sofa.
Sure. 140K. Let's go.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
It's so cool.
I guess, I don't know. It's like, I'm at an age where I feel like I'm so in the mode of like, let's go. That the next few years, I feel like it's going to be it's an exciting time, but a big turning point for me. So I'm going for it.
I rate it, and I find it inspiring that you're so like, this is what I'm doing. This is what's coming up. This is what I quite enjoy that.
Yeah.
I quite like that.
But I like surrounding myself with people who also want to flourish in that way and have got that like go after it mentality.
Yeah.
You definitely absolutely have that.
Yeah.
And
I feel like it's a blessing and a curse though sometimes, isn't it?
for sure. Yeah.
From like, I don't know, from a personal perspective, it can be a curse. From a business perspective, it's a bit of a blessing.
Yeah.
And it's just trying to find that balance.
Yeah. But being aware of it is a big part of it and knowing your limits. And I think there's times where I push it too far and you have to take it like step back or chill out a bit. That whole burnout thing is a thing. It's a real thing.
Yeah. 100%. I've been there a few times. I don't like labeling it that, but it was definitely that.
Yeah, really.
It was definitely
Have you actually experienced it?
All the symptoms that you read online, I've experienced.
Really?
I just refuse to probably let myself accept that that's what it was, because I refuse to accept that I can be burnt out. I feel like
you're like, I don't have time to be burnt out.
That wouldn't happen to me.
Yeah.
I remember being young and going to the GP once when I was taking a lot of steroids and I was doing whatever. And I remember he said to me, Ty, leave here on your way home. Yeah. Go down the hill across the road and just look at that cemetery. And I was like, why? He said, it's full of people like you that think it won't happen to me. And I was like, I'm probably like 20 here.
Deep.
And I was thinking, fucking hell.
Wow, that's a lot.
So that's like
maybe I need to swing by the cemetery.
But you know
on the
what
way
I mean?
home.
Is in like, how many people were like, oh, that's great on the news, but that'll never happen to me.
Yeah, so true.
Similar to what the climate change we're talking about.
So can I ask you a question?
Fire away. As long as it's suitable for this podcast.
We'll keep that off air. Do you feel connected to the environment? Or do you feel that care to do something for the environment? And if not, why?
Okay, so I feel it comes and goes.
Okay.
So I feel I'm one of the people that it's a little bit out of sight, out of mind for me. So if I speak to someone like you, it comes to my forefront and I then do a little bit of a dive into it and maybe try and just check myself in my day-to-day routine. So over the next few days now, I'll be like, right, okay.
Recycling.
Should I be doing that? I recycle anyway. I'm pretty good at that. Like I'm the guy that cleans everything and puts it away.
That's
it's like
good.
my OCD. In the right bin, I crush everything, all this weird shit. But like, as I said to you, it is very hard because there's so much noise. Every time I turn the media on, I've got 50% of it telling me the world's going to implode and we're all dying from climate change. And I've got 50% telling me that it's all a control mechanism and there's no global warming and it's never happened. And
what news are you watching?
No, but like...
That's intense.
It's like quite polarized.
Yeah.
And this is the thing with any subject, I believe, and I'm beating around the bush a bit, but whether it's veganism, feminism, racism, all of them, unfortunately, the people that are making most of the noise are the two ends of the polarized scale.
So true.
And the people that are in the middle that need to change can't resonate with any of them.
On that, and we talked about this already, but the curious mind, that holds so much weight in that environment, in that scenario, right? You have to be able to take in all that information and think as a person, as an individual, and think critically on all these things. And I feel like in all the noise, people get lost in how to do that. But I feel like that's where like my role as a scientist is really great, because I am thinking about things critically. You have a curious mind. You're thinking about all these things.
But also like, if I believe something is going to make a change, I will do it with everything in life.
Interesting.
But I have to have some evidence that it's making change.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm a logical thinker. I'm a realist. My brain functions systematically quite a lot, strategically, systematically. So it's like if you said to me, right, Ty, see that you keep putting that there.
Yeah.
Come out with me to Brazil. I'm going to show you something. And you show me something and you say, if you put 100 of these here, 2 of these are going to live.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay. Because I do this with the mental health charity. When I go and sit with them and I say, guys, we're going to fundraise again this year. I want to raise 100 grand, right? But I want to know, because I want to stand strong to the public and go, I am raising 100,000 and 95,000 of it is going here. 5,000 is going on admin. Out of that 95,000, I want to be able to say, like, it's buying, I don't know, 50 cancer ward machines, 20, like, tangible things.
Yeah.
And I feel like the general public cannot connect with something if they don't see an actual end result.
And I get that. There's power in that though, right? Because
I think so.
You're influencing in the world that you know and how you are able to have an impact.
So it is a small
and that's
bubble.
Great. But that's great.
But this is where I'm, like, I always think, like, if let's say cancer, because it's 1 in 2 people are going to get affected by it, I will never donate to cancer research because I don't know where the money goes.
Yeah.
Nothing against those guys.
Yeah, yeah.
But what I will do, because I live in the BCP conurbation, is I would raise money to put 3 or 4 new machines in Christchurch Hospital, Bournemouth Hospital, Port Hospital. Do you know why? Because Port Hospital treated my auntie. Christschurch might treat me one day.
It's that connection,
Bournemouth might treat you one day. And it probably goes back to that community thing we were talking about earlier.
It's that personal connection.
Can I make a positive change around me? Yes.
Yeah. And
How?
And you should apply that as well to the
How do I
issues
do
that
that
we're seeing with the environment.
Because it's so vast.
I mean, I don't want to go political with this, but like
Go on.
policymakers, governments, like unfortunately, a lot of the time we can't control that, although everyone should vote and have an impact on that.
That's today. For anyone listening, this will go out in a few
Better
weeks.
Vote. Who are you voting? Just kidding. Let's not go down that road. But that ultimately will influence how we operate as a society, as a country. And I do feel like we are sometimes wrapped up in this UK bubble that like we see things as UK stands on it. Do you know what I mean? And it's actually, this is an international problem that we have. Like around the world, we're seeing these impacts, and a lot of them in parts of the world that we don't actually have that tangible kind of connection to. So it's really difficult, but as you say, kind of reducing it down to our world, our bubbles, and doing things that you can in your day-to-day life is the best you can do. But have an awareness, think critically, think like a scientist about everything that you're doing. And there are things that you can do. If there is, great. If there isn't, that's fine. You shouldn't be penalized for that. Neither should we create this divide between like protesters and tree huggers, as we're often described, and the general public, because we are all connected to it. It's just, unfortunately, media has branded us with that.
Strong message to finish on.
Yeah. It's a lot to think about.
It is a lot to think about. My mind went off then into a little environmental frenzy.
Because that's the last thing I'll say on this, but have you ever heard of, oh God, I've actually forgotten the name of it.
What is it, TV show?
No, it's this, lots of young people are now feeling the impacts of like a heavy weight of like, there's a term for it. Do you know what I mean? Climate doom.
I know the term.
Anxiety. Climate anxiety?
Yeah, I think so.
I think it's got a proper term.
Ecological awareness, climate anxiety.
Climate anxiety. It is climate anxiety.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we are seeing a lot of younger generations feeling that pressure of the impact of the environment and the responsibility they have as individuals. And it's like literally causing them to feel this anxiety. Personally, I don't really like to label it as that. I feel like everybody's on a bit of a scale with their awareness of the environment.
Yeah.
But it's a real thing. Like people are totally overwhelmed.
Well, interestingly enough, where we've just Googled it, it's come up saying 16 to 24-year-olds more likely to be very worried about climate change versus age 50 plus, with nearly 1 in 3, so 31% very worried, compared to 23% of 50 to 64-year-olds, and 18% of those over 65. So yeah, I think as the age gets older, they care less. But is that because their time is coming up as well? Like without sounding insensitive. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
They've done their bit.
Which is nothing.
Yeah. Maybe nothing.
It's funny that, isn't it? It's kind of a sense of like, oh, well, I've lived my life. I don't really need to keep trying.
Yeah.
And then there's also like, I guess, a misunderstanding, not from a generation of like having that awareness. And sometimes it can be crippling being so overwhelmed with all that, and we talked about this already, but that whole becoming desensitized.
Yeah.
People are just like, I don't know what to do, so I'm not going to do anything. And so we have to be careful with the language we use and the stories that we tell around it. But
the division thing is really important as well. People, if they want to try and help, I always find this with, when I have chats with my friends that are like, quote unquote, raging feminists, I always say to them, like, I'm very curious and there's questions I want to ask, but I'm scared because it's eggshelly. No, I can ask them.
Okay.
Like I could ask you
Yeah.
because we have a relationship.
Yeah.
But like if someone says something out, I want to ask something because I'm curious, but you ask something and you get labelled, because it's on eggshells. You can't say that. You can't. You don't know if you're saying something right or wrong. But with that fear, we can't then get knowledge. You can never learn if you can't ask.
So true.
Because you're afraid to ask.
Yeah.
Because you feel like you're going to be labelled a misogynist. Or God knows, Andrew Tate wannabe.
Your words, not mine.
Yeah, no.
No, it's difficult.
Anyway, an hour 40, Lizzie. Let's call it
What?
a day. Yeah. There you go.
So sorry.
No, that's good. That's perfect. It's been amazing talking to you.
Great.
Thank you.
You too. Thank you.